Okay, well, we're going to get started. My name is Adrian Mintz. I'm with Emergency Reporting, and today we're going to be talking about NFIRS exports and some key, not say necessary key, but some typical problems you might encounter while doing an NFIRS export. I have a couple other people with me today. I have Sarah, who's going to be on the keyboard for the messaging part of the presentation, and she'll be able to jump in and answer questions offline while I'm talking. So if you have questions, you can type them out, and she'll try to give you an answer, a response. And then also we have our Olympia on-site training workshop going on right now, and they're also tuned in to the same presentation. And Casey is on the keyboard there. So between Sarah and Casey, they'll be able to answer questions while I'm doing the regular presentation. Also, if necessary, I'll try to watch the same questions, and we can talk about it at the end if we have time, other questions that might benefit the entire group. So if the volume is okay, that's great. If it's too noisy or too quiet, please go ahead and let us know, and I'll try to adjust it on our end. Okay, well, with all that, we're going to get started. So here's a little information about me. I'm one of the co-founders of Emergency Reporting, and we started just about 11 years ago now. I was and still am a firefighter at Cedar Woolley Fire Department in Washington State, up in the northwestern end, kind of close to the Canadian border, about 70 miles south of the Canadian border, and halfway between Seattle and Vancouver, BC. And I've been an EMT since 1995 and originally got in the fire service in 1993. So just had my 20th year, which is pretty amazing. So right off the bat here, we're going to talk about some great training opportunities we have in emergency reporting. We have a couple different options that works for different people and their needs. And so we have a number of on-site trainers now, a whole number of them, about 5 or 6 scattered across the continental United States, and they are able to come on site and provide training workshops for regional training conferences. And we'll also do individual trainings just for one department. We'll come on site to your own very department and train everyone there. We also do online trainings such as this one and others. This virtual Thursday training is open to everyone, but we can have separate dedicated online training just for your department to cover a topic that you're interested in going over. And so that's also useful for if you don't want to go to the expense and burden of having everyone travel on site, you can borrow us for a couple hours and do an online training. So we have lots of options available for trainings to suit your needs. The training conferences, the regional training conferences, which we'll have a whole bunch already scheduled, we'll talk about in just a second, encompass 3 days of training, and you can send just one person, 2 or 3 people, and these are the topics over those couple days. We have an essential package integration and a lead ER component, and these are a little more details here. The essentials is the first day, which you can purchase just by itself. It covers the basic components of the system, how to set it up, how to operate it, as you can see here online. This is really good for a new user that maybe really wants to get started on the right foot and wants to understand how to use the system and go through and add personnel, add classes, do incidents, and just get your feet wet and get started. For day 2, it's a little more flexible. It's called Agile, is the format we use. And we drive the training toward what is the people in the room are looking for. And what that means is everyone has a vote on the sort of training they're looking for. And so we can listen to the room and design the training that day to meet the needs of the people however they vote. So, for example, in a community that maybe doesn't do any hydrant maintenance because the the water department does the water maintenance, the hydrant maintenance for them. Obviously, we don't need to do any training on hydrant module, generally speaking. So the people in the room are going to be the best judge of that, as opposed to us trying to figure out what sort of training to do from outside the community. So when we get on site for day 2, we'll go through a process where they'll vote on the topics that are of interest, and then we'll dive into those topics. And your trainer has a wide range of skills to train on whatever area of the product the attendees need. And so that's what day 2 is all about. Day 3 is a little different. We talk about some management concepts such as administration, analytics, reports, Google Maps, risk assessment. And then in the afternoon, we have something we started to do. It's titled Interactive Design Process, but it's about taking the different concepts for how our product is going to evolve and involving the end users in that portion of it. And so a company of our size, we're just over 30 people, and we have about 8 programmers, testers, and technical staff. These are the people that are actually doing the coding on our product. And you may find this hard to believe, but we don't just sit around every day wondering what new things to dream up. There's a lot of demands for the programmer's time to design new products, new components within emergency reporting. And so this is one piece of that puzzle, which is what are the people at the regional workshops asking for. So on the afternoon of day 3, the trainer will lead you through a process. We'll talk about different products and what could be developed, and then go through a prioritization of those products so you can suggest the right features that are big enough to make a difference, but not so large that it's impossible to build. And that has a special channel to come back to us in the company for development. So that's a pretty nifty thing. That's pretty unusual to have that kind of feedback from customers actually make it into a process like this. So that's what the afternoon of day 3 is all about. Okay, so here's some of the upcoming trainings. Could be in your region. Right now we have one going on this minute, South Bay Olympia here in our state. They're actually tuned into the presentation, so they're meeting right now today. The next one we have after that is Leland Fire Rescue in Leland, North Carolina. Also, I should point out, if you're interested in attending any of these trainings, you can attend email Casey at Emergency Reporting, and she will be able to give you more information. Okay, next one is Golden, Colorado, March 25 to 27th. Yakima County back in Washington, April 16 and 18. Morris County, New Jersey, May 20th, 22nd. And we're going to do more planned for 2014 further out. Ohio, Texas, Utah, California, Florida, and I believe another one in Washington as well. So lots of regional trainings that are pretty interesting if you want us to attend. Lots of them around, hopefully in your neighborhood. Okay, moving forward, we have some of the latest systems. In the last 2 weeks, these are things that have been deployed. We've got on Basic 4, on the apparatus page in the incident module, there's now a big filter, a series of filters by name, rank, station. So that's really useful for larger accounts. Previously, there was just a series of checkboxes, which is fine if you have like 50 or 60 people. But if you had an account with more people, say a couple hundred people, that's pretty hard to scroll through and find people. So now you can filter it down just by typing in partial name or just searching for a rank like firefighters or lieutenants or station or shift. So that's on live right now. Another thing we did is we rewired the feature request to go to the new feedback system, which we'll talk about in a minute. So you can see features are requested from other departments and vote on them and suggest new features that other people can vote on. So that's handy. Okay, excuse me. I'm just going to take away that highlight. All right. Also, there is some new reports. There's about eight or nine new reports. And these are the report numbers here that have been online in the last couple weeks. Also, at the very bottom, I didn't have room on the slide, there's 17 additional reports that were updated. So lots and lots of report work right now, fixing reports, adding new reports, making existing reports easier to use, and so forth. So lots of stuff going on in emergency reporting in the last 2 weeks. So you may wonder where to get the latest system features, things are going on. A good one is at the top of the page. Inside emergency reporting, there's system notifications. It's the top of the welcome page. If you watch that, things will happen. Also within the support area, also in the top bar, there's a little area that says updates and news, and you can view that to see current and past update events. So that's handy if you want to just keep an eye on as the system as it changes. You can see it there. All right, and okay, one more thing. We have a poll here. I should have done it 2 slides ago. I'm going to grab it now. If anyone is interested in learning more about additional training, so if you'll hold on just 1 second. All right, so their poll is currently open. If you could take a few seconds and click on if you're interested in seeing any of the additional training options, that helps us guide further training in the future. Terrific. About half of you have voted. I'll give another 15 seconds. All right, great. I'm going to close it. I'm going to close it right now. Thank you very much for that information. It's really useful for us to design future trainings. Okay. So the next thing is our feedback page, feedback.emergencyreporting.com. This is being used now moving forward as our primary portal for providing support and have people vote on items. And so as we go through this process and you need assistance, if you click through it through the support page or go there directly, you'll get to this one page, feedback.emergencyreporting.com. And this is a real useful tool to search for help, view online videos, and also make new requests for features and vote on them. Also, I'm going to ask another quick poll, which is, has anyone viewed the feedback page already? And that should be out now. Just answer that for a few seconds. Terrific. Just another 10 seconds. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Terrific. Okay, we have a wide range of people that have used it all over the board, so it's really good. All right, I will dive into the feedback page itself in just a moment when we get started. Next, I want to welcome some new customers who have come on in the last 2 weeks. Quite a few. Rutgers University, New Jersey, Bainbridge Township, Ohio, Coppell District, Virginia, Easton Township, Kansas, Kingsville, Texas, West Pulaski Fire, Arkansas, Middleton Fire Rescue, New Hampshire, Palmer Municipal Fire, Pennsylvania, Fort Stewart, Georgia, Hunter Army Airfield, Georgia, Lebanon Fire of Pennsylvania, which is an upgrade, Shorten Gap, West Virginia, Crooked Creek Fire, North Carolina, Sugarloaf Fire, Pennsylvania, Long Branch, New Jersey, Lafayette Jackson Township, Ohio, Couts Fire, Indiana, sorry if I butchered that, and Border Fire, Texas. Oh, sorry, excuse me, 3 more. Allentown, Florida, Battens, Alabama, and Verdunville Fire, West Virginia. Thank you, everybody, for coming on board. Terrific. All right, into today's objectives. Today is going to talk about how to do NFIRS exports, who can do it and when you do it, how the system groups the data, where the data goes and how it gets there. There's a little bit of variation depending on the state, which I'll talk about in just a moment. Some states do it differently, but this is applicable to all states and military customers that are federal. We'll also talk about how to log into the FEMA website. About, I want to say, a third of the states have data that is supposed to be uploaded directly to FEMA's website. The rest of the states have data that can be submitted by email. So this is for the states that need to upload the data to the website. We'll just talk about it briefly. It'll just take a minute. And then the third piece is how to review NFIRS errors if encountered, what's the difference between a warning and a critical error, and what to do if you find an error in the course of doing an export. So thank you very much for attending our training today, and we're going to get started now. And one last question I want to know how, before I exit the PowerPoint portion of the presentation, is how many agencies have uploaded data to FEMA? And if you don't know what I'm talking about, that's okay. It's relevant, but I just want to know how much time I should spend on that in just a few minutes. So there's the poll open. If you've voted data or if you've uploaded data to FEMA. Okay, another 10 seconds. Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to show these results, actually, if we can here. So there's the results. So 45% have not done it. So I'll just touch on it briefly then, just as what I was thinking about doing. Okay, so we're going to move on. Okay, now we're going to log into the system. Excuse me just a moment here. Okay, so now we should have the emergency reporting login screen up. I just switched, so I want to be sure I'm viewing the right page. Can everyone see the login page? Okay, could someone confirm if you're seeing the login page? Okay, great, thank you. So I'm going to log in, and I am logging into an actual customer account. This is my fire department up here in Washington State. The chief gave me permission. And so we're going to go talk about NFIRS exports. And so it's down here in the left-hand side. I have to be an administrator in order to see the admin button on the left-hand side, the very left bottom of the nav bar. If you can't see it, it means you're not an administrator. So we're going to click on that. And these are the different settings in administration. And on the left-hand side, I'm going to highlight it here. Right there, there is an export titled NFIRS 5.1 export. And if you have NFIRS enabled on your account, you should see the NFIRS export available and able to click. So we're going to click that. And what the system does is it figures out the calls that are available for export versus the calls that are not yet ready to export. And we'll show this graphically in just a second when the page comes up. So, all right. So in this case, in this state, we're in the state of Washington. We are sending the data by the month. And so you'll see on this page, all of the data is grouped by a month going down. Some states, there's only about 3 of them, want the data submitted by quarter. In those states, we know who they are. I want to say it's California and South Carolina and one other state. I don't remember offhand who it is. Instead of seeing it by month here, where it says here, that says month, it'll be grouped by quarter instead. So it'll say quarter 1, 2013, quarter 2, 2013, and so on and so forth. So we do that for you. We know what state you're in, and so we give you the appropriate grouping for that state. There's also one state, I believe it's Tennessee, that wants the data submitted every couple weeks, and they get a slightly different page than this one for the customers in the state of Tennessee, or any state that has something a little odd. I think it's just Tennessee. So regardless, you'll get to this page. Now, when you get to this page, there's a couple of things that are really important to point out. One, notice that the most recent month available to export is December 2013. And you might say, well, why can't I export January? And the reason is that in this state, in the state of Washington, January is not yet done, right? Obviously. So we don't let you export it yet because the state wants the data only in the month. So that's why January is hidden at this time. Also, there's a couple other things that are important. There is this column that says exported, not yet exported, exported, need to be exported, and not yet reviewed. It's at the top there. See that? So what that means is the exported column means that's 100, for November, for example, 161 incidents were exported in the month of November 2013. Past tense. It's already been done. The number of incidents for December 2013 is currently 0. No incidents have been exported. Okay. So we go to the next column. It says it need to be exported. There's 164 need to be exported for December. That about fits because there's none that have been exported. And there's 0 need to be exported for the prior 2 months, November and October of 2013. Now the last column on the far right side says not yet reviewed. What happens with that is we want our data, we want the data to be 100% complete and reviewed before we permit you to export the data. And so the system, if it says not yet reviewed, it means that represents calls that have been started but not yet completed or reviewed in order to export to the state. So if you have anything greater than one or more incidents in the not yet reviewed column, the system will not permit you to export that month. So there's a couple different things you'd have to get through before we give you the option to export the month. All right. Now, I'm going to do 2 more things and I'm going to do an export and show you. So in this case, notice that the month December 2013, there's a little button next to it that's called a radio button, and the radio button is illuminated, ready to go. That means the system has made a determination that we can export that month. Now before we do it, I want to scroll down to the bottom just a little bit. And there's 2 more things I want to show you. In this state, the state of Washington, data is sent by email to the fire chief, to the state. Some states will only accept data directly from the fire customer themselves. They will not accept it from a third party such as emergency reporting. In that case, we also know about which states those are. We will email it not to the state, but we will email the data to the individual fire department, and they are then required to forward it onto the state. I I don't think it's a very efficient way of doing it, but some states, that's what they require. So we know which states want it that way, and we'll have it represented down here. So it says export recipients for this export type. These two email addresses will receive any NFIRS file that we export. Okay? In some cases, it may also go to FEMA, but FEMA does not accept emails with NFIRS data attached. So that doesn't work in those cases, but we have a special message that will go to the fire department and with instructions on how to upload it. Regardless, this form will send data where it's supposed to, depending on your state and how your state wants the EMS, or correction, how the state wants the NFIRS data handled, or the federal government if you're a military customer. Military customers, we send it to the Naval Safety Center, which receives data for all branches of the military, just the same as if you're your own state. That's how the military customers are handled. Okay, so I'm going to trigger an export now. And so the way it's going to work is I go up to the top, and in this case, we'll just pretend I'm a fire chief or a data administrator, and I say, okay, I look at my data, December 2013, 164 calls ready to be exported, none, 0 calls are not yet reviewed. So I click the radio button for December 2013. I scroll down to the bottom. I click the export button, and the system is going to jump off. Okay, the export is already done, just like that. It took about 2 seconds. And this is a list of all the calls that were exported and the incident date it was that call was on. So quite a long list. You can view this in the future as well, but that's a list of all the calls. And the email is already gone, okay? So you may want to look at it and say, well, what did the file look like, where did it go, and so forth. So I'm going to click on Administration. And if I click on Export History, I'll highlight it here for you. Right there. That is a list of all incidents that have been exported in the past, including NFIRS files, state EMS exports, if you have a state EMS export, a medical billing export, if you have a medical billing export. They'll all be visible through export history. So if for some reason the state loses a file, you can actually recover it out of export history. So I'm going to go click on it now. Go Export History. And here's a list of all the different exports that went off out of this account. There's also a resend option. So if your state accepts NFIRS data from the third-party vendor and they did not receive it, which happens way more frequently than you might imagine, there is a resend button right here which will resend that data across email. So that's really handy for the state emails you maybe 6 months from now and says, hey, you never submitted December 2013, we want it submitted. You can just go in here and click the resend button and it'll be sent off. Okay, so short of that, I'm going to show you what an NFIRS file looks like here. Just very quickly so you can see. I'm going to click the download link. All right, and so all this gobbledygook is the NFIRS file, and that's what it looks like. Actual valid NFIRS data will look like this. You can view it in a text file, but you can view it in a text file, but it's kind of hard to read. And also, just as a way of noting, the fire chief for this account just texted me and said, hey, I got an email. So he received the email just like he should. He was expecting it. All right. So that's how we receive that's how the data is sent out of the system. If you receive the email, if it's configured in your state to receive the email, you'll get a text message in the body of the email that will include the instructions about the data. So if you have to submit it to FEMA, it'll tell you in the email. If it's already been done and emailed to the state, it'll tell you that in the email body as well. So that's all there is to it. All you got to do is get all the incidents complete and reviewed, and that will make the calls available for export. and then go into the, once a month when the month is done, or the quarter is done, if that's the way your state is set up, go into the NFIRS export, select the appropriate month, and click export. And that's it. So pretty straightforward to do NFIRS exports. Now we're going to talk about a few other things, like how to log into FEMA and how to deal with errors, but for a vast majority of the customers, that's going to be it right there. All right. Great. So now I'm going to touch on NFIRS, how to upload to FEMA. This will take just a second. So this is not what you would normally do. I'm just going to demonstrate one method to submit data to FEMA without using an email. So let's say that I need to upload the data to FEMA. So I'm going to go to Export History. I'm going to click Download. I'm going to select Save As. I'm going to save the file to my desktop. All right, now I have the file saved on my desktop. We'll get to it in just a minute. Now I go to FEMA. I log into FEMA. This is the FEMA website. And the page that I have here is a little bit different than the one that you would have. This is a bulk update utility which we use for customers in the state of Washington. However, yours would look pretty close to this. So I would log in, I'd select Browse, and I'm going to go find the file. There it is, 29M09. Hit Open, hit Upload File. Oh, I got to log in. Okay. So, username. And, okay. Email, all right, so, sorry, I timed out here. So now I'm going to log in, click on the file, hit Browse, and hit Upload File. And it says no such, all right, it says no such file or directory. I'm not sure what that's about. So it worked fine right before the training. What should have happened is it would say, files received, and then it would email me an upload report if any errors were encountered. So let's just imagine it was okay. That's for almost every single case. That's all you're going to need to do if you have to upload data to FEMA. Very straightforward. Now, I want to talk about if you receive an error. This is important to talk about. So if you might get an error, for a couple different reasons. One, the state receives an error and they just throw the error back at you and say, fix it. Or the state receives an error, but they haven't updated to the most recent edition of the federal rules. The federal rules are issued by FEMA generally once a year. In 2014, they elected not to release any new updated rules, but in 2015, I'm sure they will. And when they do that, when they update those rules, there's always a scattering of states that don't update their stuff and they start rejecting valid incidents. It happens, it's fine. So in those cases, we email the state and ask them if they've updated their rules. So regardless of what happens, if you get an error that comes back, we view that, emergency reporting views those errors as a bug. You shouldn't get them. We have over 1 million incidents a year that are input into the system. And right now, I figured it out yesterday, about 99.97% of those incidents are going to be valid. So that's pretty good. I think that's pretty good. But that still leaves around 300 incidents a year that are invalid, and that's about 1 a day. And so we have a process to capture those, identify what happened, and then we go and fix it. And so that process has been continuing for the last 11 years as we stay on top of the NFIRS errors, fix them, identify them, fix them, and then re-release the updated system. So what do you do if you get an error? Well, I have a sample error I'm going to show you. So maybe this error came back from the state. Maybe this error came back from FEMA. It'll look pretty much identical to this. And it's going to have a couple different things. it will have, there's two classifications. There's warnings and there's critical errors. And so if you'll see these, highlighted here so you can see, here's an example of an error. And you look at this and you say, oh my goodness, look at all these errors. But in fact, there's only, looks like, yeah, there's only one error, and that's right here. The rest of the records on this page are warnings. So if you look at them, it says, basic module 20 minutes exceeds NFPA standard, please check times. So that's a warning. That's not an invalid, you do not have an invalid file. It just says, hey, are you sure? The response time is greater than 20 minutes. Well, I think anyone who's in the fire service, certainly in a rural area, you'll understand there are instances where you may have a greater than 20-minute response time. That's just the way it is. So we generally ignore warnings because it's valid data. It's just a long response time. However, if you see a critical error like this, it'll have some gobbledygook like this. It'll give your FDID, the state, the incident date, the incident number, and then the error. So it says wildland module required data, critical, wildland fire, human factors, Okay, so we translate for that. It says the human factors are required on the wildland module on that incident, and they were not collected. Okay, so if you receive a message like this from the state or from FEMA, please send it to support@emergencyreporting.com. And we will look at it, identify the error, make the correction, and generally we'll ask you to resubmit the data. So that's how we deal with errors. So if you see these errors, that's what we want to do. We have a very high standard on NFIRS submission. We want to make those things go clean every single time. So don't if you receive a critical error, don't hesitate. Please forward it back to us, and we'll take a look at it. Okay. So that was it on NFIRS errors. And I'm looking through my notes here, seeing if we have anything else that we should take a look at. That's it for the CAN presentation. I'm just going to look at one more thing and then open it up for questions. Okay. Oh, there's one more. There's one important thing I want to talk about. Okay. Okay, this is a good point. Back in the system, when I try to do an export, there was email addresses at the bottom of the page. They're down here at the very bottom. And sometimes we will find an email address starts to bounce. So maybe that the email for the chief has changed, or maybe that person has left the department, and we start getting email bounces. This happens every day here. So what we do is we will flag that email address as invalid. So when you log in and you go try to do your exports, if this email address is invalid, in bright red text to the right of the email address, it will say invalid. Okay? So that's a hint that there's a problem, and you need to contact support, and we'll get that straightened out. You just tell us what you need, and we'll put it in there. In some cases, maybe there's two people in there, and in some cases we have it that both email addresses are invalid. If that happens, both will say invalid, and we will disable the export button, because obviously we can't do an export if we don't have a valid email address to send you the data. So if you see both email addresses, or however many there are, they're all invalid, and the export button is dimmed out, that means we need some valid email addresses. Contact support, tell us what needs to be in there, we'll fix it, you can do your export. Not a big deal, but it can trip you up sometimes. So if you see an invalid email address in there, that's why. We were receiving bounced emails, and we flagged it as invalid. So just contact us and we can straighten it out. One more thing, some states, when they receive errors, reply straight to emergency reporting, and you will never see the error. We'd like it if the state would reply to everyone, so that the fire department and emergency reporting get the error report, but it doesn't work that way a lot of times. So we will resolve the issue, and you may or may not be in the loop. If you do get the error, please forward it to us, but you may not always get it. Okay. One more thing. There are several states, most notably Oregon, and also the Department of Defense, that have very specific requirements on the incident number itself. The incident number is a 7-digit number. You collect on basic 1. Some states want leading zeros. The Department of Defense wants very specific numbers with leading zeros and a year in the incident number twice. We handle all of that on export, okay? So you just put in the incident number 1 at the beginning of the year, and we will manipulate that number, add leading zeros, prepend the year, add the station ID, all kinds of other stuff that the state or the Department of Defense has mandated. So we handle that automatically, okay? You don't have to worry about that. You just put in the incident number, put in the incident data, and we'll handle all the rest of the stuff. You just put it in and we'll worry about it. We'll take care of the rest. And, one more thing, 2 more things, and then I'll be done, and we'll open for questions. If you receive the data from the state, if you receive the data from emergency reporting, please forward the email without altering the file. The file is very specific. If you open the NFIRS file in like a Word document and then hit save and send that saved version on, Word will just butcher the NFIRS file. So please just forward the email if you have to send it to the state. One more thing, last thing. There are cases where we have specific state-required information. Massachusetts, Illinois, Tennessee, Oregon, and I want to say one other state that escapes me at the moment has additional data elements that they want collected. Massachusetts has the most by far. They have, I think, 23 additional elements. We do that automatically, again, all through the system. It's all wired in the same. We enforce the requirements just the same. So if we know about your state requirements, we will implement them into the system and you don't have to worry about that. So that's just one more thing not to worry about. Okay, so that is it for my CAN presentation. I'm going to switch back to this PowerPoint. Hold on just a moment. Please go ahead and ask questions on the messaging pane, and we'll take a look at it, and I'll answer it if we can. And here is the contact information for additional training. You can email Casey at emergencyreporting.com, or you can call her. Here's her number and extension here. If you're interested in learning more about training. But we'll have, I'll just be here for a few minutes if we have additional questions. Please go ahead and type them in. Any questions, anybody? Okay. Okay, I have a question here. It was from Mark Vodopich, one of our employees here. He had a good question. He said, if I have incidents that need review, how do I find them to lock them before I can export per month? Okay, great question. So in this scenario, imagine you had you click the export pane in administration, and let's say there's one call that needs to be reviewed. And you go, I can't find that. How do I get there? So I'm going to switch accounts, and I'm going to log into one here. I'm going to pause the presentation. I will come right back, and I'll show you how to find that. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, so I am now in a test account, so this is not real data. This is all test data and evaluation data. And in this case, you have lots of incomplete calls, so it's easy to find them. But let's just imagine you had one incomplete call and you couldn't find it very easily. So the easiest way to do that is on the left-hand side of the screen, there is a couple different ways to find those incomplete calls. The first way, the easiest way, you see where I'm highlighting, is in that section is you select incomplete calls only, and that will permit you to find just incomplete calls. So I'm going to set incomplete calls, last 30 days. That might be enough. It might be longer, but I'm going to hit search. And you might need to set this to this year. All right, so it's a longer date range. Now, if you're trying to find a call in the previous year, well, it'd have to be this year and last year, incomplete calls, search. This will probably find it, okay? That's a very quick and easy way to find incomplete calls or complete calls that need to be reviewed. There's a three-step process. Incomplete calls are red padlocks. A complete call is a yellow padlock. I don't have any on the screen, but that's what it would look like. And then the upper level is a reviewed call, a green padlock. So you must have only green padlocks for the entire month or quarter in question before we can export. And so using the search criteria on the left-hand side, you can hunt those down and identify what the problem is, completing the call or reviewing it to get finished. So that's a really good question, and thank you for pointing that out, Mark. Okay, let's take a look at some other questions here. Okay, any more questions? We'll hang out just for another 5 minutes or so, so if anyone comes up with anything, please let us know. Okay, if there's no more questions, hold on just for a moment. Okay, so I don't have any more questions, so I'm going to close the session. Thank you very much for attending today, and please let us know if you're interested in more training by contacting Casey, and I'll throw that up here one last time. There's her contact information. It's also on our website as well. So thank you very much for attending, and we'll see you guys in the future.